What happens when a beloved morning television host is pushed to her absolute breaking point by a guest who refuses to show even a shred of respect? In just 39 seconds, one comment would turn a routine interview into the most explosive exit in daytime television history. The This Morning studio was buzzing with its usual energy. Alison Hammond sat in her hosting chair, her warm smile ready to welcome the latest guest. The cameras began rolling, and there she was, Ruth Langsford, a name synonymous with British television, walking onto the set with an air of superiority that immediately filled the room. Alison stood up, extending her hand. "Ruth, welcome to This Morning. It is so lovely to have you here with us today." Ruth barely glanced at the outstretched hand before sitting down, adjusting her jacket with deliberate precision. "Yes, well, I suppose we will see about that." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. Alison maintained her composure, settling back into her seat with that trademark warmth she was known for. "So Ruth, you have had such an incredible career in television. I would love to hear about your journey and what brought you to where you are today." Ruth sighed audibly, looking around the studio as if assessing whether it met her standards. "You know, Alison, I have been doing this for decades. Decades. I have sat in chairs far more prestigious than this one, interviewed people who actually matter, and frankly, I am not sure this particular show is the right platform for someone of my caliber." The air in the studio thickened. Alison blinked, processing what she had just heard, but recovered with grace. "Well, we have millions of viewers who tune in every single day, and they are all very excited to hear from you." "Millions?" Ruth laughed, a cold, dismissive sound. "Darling, let me tell you about real numbers. When I was hosting, when I was in my prime, we had audiences that actually understood quality television. Not this watered-down morning fluff you people serve up nowadays." Alison leaned forward slightly, her smile still present, but her eyes showing the first hints of something else. "Ruth, This Morning has been a staple of British television for years. Our viewers trust us, they love us, and we work incredibly hard to bring them content that brightens their day." "Oh, please," Ruth waved her hand dismissively. "You work hard? Do you have any idea what real work is? I have carried shows on my back. I have dealt with real journalism, real topics, real substance. What do? Giggle your way through cooking segments and celebrity gossip?" The camera operators exchanged glances. The producers in the control room were frozen, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let this play out. Alison straightened in her chair, her voice remaining steady. "Ruth, I understand you have had a long career, and nobody is taking that away from you, but there is no need to diminish what we do here or the hard work of everyone on this team." Ruth leaned back, crossing her arms. "I am not diminishing anything, Alison. I am simply stating facts. You want to talk about my career? Fine. Let me tell you what real hosting looks like. It is not about being everyone's best friend. It is not about laughing at every little thing. It is about command, presence, authority. Things I am not sure you quite understand." "Ruth," Alison said, her tone firming up, "I have been doing this job for a long time, too. I have interviewed incredible people. I have covered important stories, and I have done it all while treating every single person who walks through that door with respect. Something I am noticing you seem to be struggling with right now." "Respect?" Ruth scoffed. "You want to talk to me about respect? I have earned my respect through years of excellence." "You have earned your spot through what exactly? Being bubbly? Being likable? That is not journalism, sweetheart. That is entertainment for people who do not know any better." The audience gasped quietly. Alison's jaw tightened, but she pressed on. "Ruth, I am going to ask you politely to please show some respect, not just to me, but to this show, to our crew, and to our viewers." Ruth laughed again, louder this time. Or what, Alison? What are you going to do? Cry about it? Run to your producers? This is exactly what I'm talking about. No backbone, no real substance, just sensitivity and feelings. Ruth, that is enough, Alison said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. I have tried to be gracious. I have tried to give you the benefit of the doubt. But you have come onto this show, disrespected me, disrespected my colleagues, and insulted our viewers. I am not going to sit here and allow that to continue. Ruth sat forward, her eyes narrowing. So, allow? You are not going to allow? Who do you think you are exactly? You are a host on a morning chat show, not the Queen of England. Do not get ahead of yourself. I am the host of this show, Alison replied, her voice strong and unwavering. And that means I get to decide who sits in that chair and who does not. Right now, Ruth, you are showing everyone watching exactly the kind of person you really are. Is this really how you want to be remembered? Ruth stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. How dare you? How dare you speak to me like that? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I have accomplished? I have forgotten more about television than you will ever know. Alison remained seated, looking up at Ruth with a calm that seemed to infuriate her guest even more. Ruth, I know exactly who you are, and right now you are being incredibly rude and unprofessional. I am asking you one more time to please sit down and have a civil conversation, or we are going to have to end this interview. End the interview? Ruth threw her head back. You think you can end this interview? I am Ruth Langsford. I do not get dismissed by the likes of you. This is absurd. Absolutely absurd. Ruth, please, Alison tried once more, her patience wearing visibly thin. Just sit down. We can talk about your career, your achievements, anything you want, but you need to show some basic human decency. Ruth pointed a finger at Alison, her voice rising. Do not tell me about human decency. I have been nothing but honest with you. If you cannot handle the truth about your little show, then that is your problem, not mine. Maybe if you spent less time worrying about feelings and more time worrying about actual content, you would have a show worth watching. That was it. That was the moment. Alison stood up, her full height matching Ruth's energy. You know what, Ruth? I have had enough. I have sat here and listened to you insult me, and insult this show, and insult everyone who works here. I have given you chance after chance to turn this around, and you have thrown every single one of them back in my face. Ruth's eyes widened slightly, clearly not expecting this response. Excuse me. You heard me, Alison continued. I am done. This interview is over. You need to leave. The studio fell into complete silence. Even the crew members stopped moving. Ruth stared at Alison, her mouth slightly open. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious, Alison said firmly. You have crossed every line there is to cross. You do not get to come onto this show and treat people this way. I do not care how long you have been in television. I do not care how many shows you have hosted. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gets to speak to me or my team like that. Ruth's face flushed red. This is outrageous. You are making a huge mistake, Alison. A huge mistake. Do you know what this is going to do to your reputation? Do you know who I know? The people I can call? I do not care, Alison shot back. I really do not care, Ruth. Because at the end of the day, I can look at myself in the mirror and know that I treated you with kindness and respect from the moment you walked in here. Can you say the same? Ruth grabbed her handbag from beside the chair. You are going to regret this. Mark my words. This is not over. Actually, it is over, Alison said, her voice softening just slightly, but remaining firm. It is over right now. Security will show you out. Security? Ruth's voice hit a new pitch. You are calling security on me? This is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I am a guest on this show. You were a guest, Alison corrected. Past tense. And you stopped acting like one about 10 minutes ago. Ruth looked around wildly, as if expecting someone to come to her defense. The crew avoided her gaze. The audience sat in stunned silence. Fine, Ruth finally spat out. Fine. I did not want to be on this pathetic show anyway. You can have your little morning program with your little audience. I am above this. Then leave, Alison said simply, gesturing toward the exit. The door's right there. Ruth straightened her jacket again, lifting her chin. I have never been treated so disrespectfully in my entire career. This is disgraceful. The only disgraceful thing here is your behavior, Alison replied. Now please, leave before you make this any worse for yourself. Ruth took a step toward the exit, then turned back. You think you have won something here? You think standing up to me makes you some kind of hero? Alison did not flinch. I think treating people with basic respect is just being a decent human being. Something you might want to try sometime. How dare you, Ruth hissed. How absolutely dare you? I came here as a favor. A favor! And this is how you repay me? A favor? Alison almost laughed. Ruth, you came here to promote yourself. Let us be honest. And instead of having a nice conversation, you decided to spend the entire time attacking everyone around you. That is not a favor. That is a disaster. Ruth's hands trembled slightly as she gripped her handbag tighter. I will make sure everyone knows about this. Everyone. You will never work in this industry again. I am working in this industry right now, Alison pointed out, her voice steady as a rock. I have a show. I have viewers who love and support me. And I have a team that respects me. What do you have, Ruth, besides a reputation that you are destroying more with every second you stay on this stage? The color drained from Ruth's face, then flooded back even redder. That is it. I am done. I am finished with this nonsense. Great, Alison said. Then we finally agree on something. Ruth spun on her heel and marched toward the exit, her heels clicking sharply against the studio floor. She stopped one more time at the edge of the stage, turning to deliver what she clearly hoped would be a devastating final blow. You know what your problem is, Alison. You are too soft. Too weak. This industry will eat you alive, and when it does, do not come crying to people like me who actually know how to survive. Alison smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her entire face. Ruth, I have survived just fine without your advice up until now. I think I will manage. Ruth opened her mouth to respond, closed it, then opened it again. No words came out. She let out a frustrated sound, something between a groan and a shriek, and stormed off the set. The sound of her footsteps echoed through the studio until finally, blessedly, they faded away. The silence that followed was deafening. Alison stood there for a moment, her chest rising and falling with deep breaths. Then she turned to the camera, to the millions of viewers watching at home, and her smile returned. Not smug, not triumphant, just warm and genuine. Well, she said, letting out a small laugh, that was not quite how I expected this morning to go. The audience erupted. Not just polite applause, but genuine, thunderous applause. They stood up, cheering. She's showing their support for the host, who had just stood her ground against one of the most difficult guests in the show's history. Alison waved her hand, trying to calm them down, but the applause continued. Thank you. Honestly, I believe everyone deserves respect. Whether you are a guest, a viewer, or a member of our crew. We work too hard and care too much to let anyone make us feel small. The applause grew even louder. Somewhere backstage, Ruth could probably still hear it. The vindication, the support, the love that the audience had for their host. Alison took a deep breath and looked directly into the camera. Right. Shall we move on? I believe we have a wonderful cooking segment coming up next, and I promise you, it will be much more pleasant than what you just witnessed." Laughter rippled through the audience, releasing the tension that had built up over the past 15 minutes. The crew sprang back into action, resetting for the next segment. But everyone in that studio knew they had just witnessed something extraordinary. They had watched Alison Hammond, the host known for her warmth and kindness, show that those qualities did not mean weakness. They had seen her stand up to someone who thought their legacy gave them the right to treat others poorly. They had witnessed the exact moment when patience ran out and boundaries were enforced. As the show cut to commercial, Alison sat back down in her chair. Her hands were shaking slightly, the adrenaline finally catching up with her. One of the producers rushed over, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" the producer asked quietly. Alison nodded, taking a sip of water. "I'm okay. I could not let that continue. You know?" "You did the right thing," the producer assured her. "Absolutely the right thing." Alison smiled, a tired but satisfied smile. "I hope so. I really hope so." The commercial break ended. The cameras came back on. Alison transformed back into the bubbly, warm host everyone knew and loved. But something had shifted. There was a new edge to her presence, a quiet strength that had always been there, but was now impossible to ignore. The cooking segment went perfectly. The guest chef was delightful. The food looked amazing. And Alison laughed and joked as if the previous drama had never happened. But the viewers knew. The crew knew. And somewhere, Ruth Langsford knew. You could be the kindest person in the room. You could be warm and welcoming and generous with your time and energy. But that did not mean you had to accept disrespect. That did not mean you had to smile and nod while someone tore you down. Alison had drawn her line in the sand, and she had done it with grace, with firmness, and with the support of everyone watching. The rest of the show flowed smoothly. Interviews happened, segments aired, and This Morning continued doing what it did best. But that moment, that explosive confrontation, would be the thing everyone remembered. Not because of the drama, though there was plenty of that, but because it showed something important. It showed that being kind does not mean being a doormat. It showed that professionalism has limits. It showed that even the warmest hearts have boundaries that should not be crossed. As the show wrapped up and Alison said her goodbyes to the viewers, she felt lighter somehow, like she had shed a weight she did not even know she was carrying. The weight of always having to be nice, always having to accommodate, always having to make everyone else comfortable at the expense of her own dignity. Ruth had come onto that set thinking her reputation and experience gave her carte blanche to behave however she wanted. She had assumed Alison would be too polite, too concerned with keeping things pleasant, to push back. She had been wrong, in spectacularly, memorably, undeniably wrong. The cameras finally stopped rolling. The studio lights dimmed. The audience filed out, still buzzing with excitement about what they had witnessed. Alison remained in her chair for a moment, processing everything that had just happened. "You were incredible," one of the camera operators said as they passed by. Alison looked up, surprised. "Thank you. I was worried I might have gone too far." "Too far?" The camera operator shook their head. "You went exactly as far as you needed to go. That woman was out of line from the second she sat down." Others chimed in, crew members who had been biting their tongues throughout the entire ordeal. They shared their own observations, their own moments of shock at Ruth's behavior. It became clear that Alison had not just been defending herself. She had been defending all of them. Every assistant who had ever been spoken down to. Every crew member who had been treated as invisible. Every person who had ever been made to feel less than because someone else thought their title or tenure made them superior. Alison had stood up for all of them, and they would not forget it. As she finally stood to leave, gathering her notes and preparing to head to her dressing room, Alison caught her reflection in one of the monitors. She looked the same as she always did. Same warm eyes, same genuine smile. But there was something else there now, too. A confidence that came from knowing she had done the right thing, even when it was hard. The morning had started like any other. Coffee, makeup, script review, the usual routine. It had ended with one of the most dramatic moments in daytime television history. And through it all, Alison Hammond had remained exactly who she was. Kind, professional, warm, and unwilling to compromise her values for anyone. That was the real story. Not that Ruth Langsford had been difficult. Difficult guests were nothing new. The story was that when pushed to her limit, when disrespected and insulted in front of millions, Alison had found her voice and used it. She had shown that you could be beloved and still have boundaries. You could be friendly and still demand respect. You could be the good guy and still stand your ground. And somewhere out there, viewers were learning the same lesson. That being nice did not mean accepting mistreatment. That kindness was not weakness. That sometimes the most important thing you could do was simply say, enough is enough. Alison walked off the set that day, knowing she had made the right call. It had not been easy. It had not been comfortable. But it had been necessary, and she would do it again in a heartbeat. Because at the end of the day, everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves to be treated with basic human decency. And if you could not offer that, then you did not deserve a seat at the table. No matter how long you had been in the industry, no matter how many shows you had hosted, no matter how big you thought your name was, the line had been drawn, the boundary had been set, and television would be better for it.